Rosie Cooper from Cooper Consulting, who's contracted with the council to do some work for us right now, is just joined us, so I'm going to have her help me with this. Would you want to talk a little bit about Kansas Department of Children and Families?
Kansas Department of Children and Families is where individuals can get all sorts of assistance. If that job when you first start out isn't paying enough that you can buy food, this is where you go to get food stamps. This is where you go to get a lot of different types of assistance. This map shows the different regions of Kansas and the phone numbers to reach them.
They might even be able to help with things like child care and some of those things as you're first getting started.
Yes.
The next section we have here is the Community Developmental Disability Organization. They're the entity that you can go to find out if you qualify for intellectual and developmental disability services. They'll go ahead and do the screenings and determine eligibility, and then they can also determine what level of services you would need. One of the drawbacks to this is this particular service has a waiting list in our state, but that shouldn't preclude you from going on and getting on the waiting list so that whenever services are available, you can access them. So let's talk about the next one.
Community mental health centers. There's 27 in the state. Each one of these offers a full range of mental health services, everything from therapy to help correct a temporary situation, or if you're an individual that needs med management, case management. The SED waiver for the seriously emotionally disturbed youth is also the gatekeepers of that waiver.
So if you happen to be a family with a child under the age of 26, the service you may want to access is from Families Together. And Families Together can help you with all kinds of things. They're basically a parent and training information center, and they're actually doing a project for the council right now on translating some of their stuff into Spanish for Spanish-speaking families as well.
Next, we have the Kansas Special Education Advisory Council. This is literally you can see the different districts here, the different numbers. This shows where the council members live. So they are from all across the state of Kansas. They're from all different walks of life to get input into the State Board of Ed as to what is needed in Kansas for students with disabilities.
The Kansas Rehab Services Department for Children and Families PreEmployment Transition Services is a relatively new service. This was started with the WIOA legislation that was just recently passed about 4 years ago. And so this is the states working to figure out how to help transition age youth transition better into employment. And I think there's about 25 specialists around the state that have been hired to do that. And again, this is relatively new, so we're still figuring out how all this works.
And it gets connected with the students early, before they leave high school. Everything from career planning to job tryouts, where you actually get to experience and see whether you like that job or not. So this is new and it is exciting.
And one of the most important things that we've discovered in our research is the best indicator for whether or not a child or a youth is going to be employed is if they were employed as a youth. That's what leads to employment in adulthood as well.
Social Security. A lot of students with disabilities are already on a thing called SSI, Supplemental Security Income. As they age out past 18, that they have to qualify as an adult. These are the different Social Security offices within the state of Kansas. And if you're a person that receives Social Security, this needs to be your partner. They're not the enemy. They're your partner.
One of the next sections we want to make sure people are aware of is the Kansas Small Business Development Centers. A few years ago, the Kansas Council on Developmental Disabilities actually provided grant support to train them on how to provide supports and services to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities that were operating or wanted to operate their own business, help with writing plans and actually working through the whole issue of how income affects people's lives and those kinds of things. And so the Small Business Development Center are actually experts in helping people with disabilities start their own business as well.
And can I add a little something,
Yes.
Steve? The Small Business Development Centers and Social Security work together on what's called the PASS plan. The Plan for Achieving Self-Sufficiency is what it's called. And an individual who wants to start their own business, if they go through a development center to create a business plan, that plan's going to get approved. And it's a way to set aside income to finance what you need to be employed successfully.
Rosie, I'm going to take this one because I'm on the workforce board for Workforce Area 1, this big section of the state out here. And we provide all kinds of supports and services for people of all ages and all disabilities, no disabilities, just whoever needs help with finding a job or getting training for jobs. And we have things like dislocated workers, we have adult workers, which are people that generally don't have high incomes, and then they can qualify for additional supports and services. We've also been really creative out in local area 1, and we've also written some other grants and supports. And so there's a lot of things that we can do. So in your journey of looking at employment, this might be one of the first stops that you want to make, is see what your local workforce center can do for you, because they can help you with job search, resume writing, as well as maybe additional training if that's what you need to be successful in employment. Got anything else to add, Rosie?
I think you did it very well, very well. And it connects right to rehabilitation services, which is through the Department of Children and Family. It's where they're housed, but it's vocational rehabilitation services. These are the different offices in the state. When youth are, they start a transition plan, they will begin to be connected to their vocational rehabilitation counselor. This counselor, some of the things that are available, it could be transportation, like buying accessible vans. It could be school. It could be buying books. It could be helping to pay for that child care if you don't qualify under DCF. It's just a whole menu of items, and people need to remember, if they didn't fit once, when their life changes, they need to go back again and again and again. This is a lifelong support to employment.
Yeah, and I've heard that they've even sometimes buy tools for people that need tools for work, or uniforms, or any number of things. So it's just a variety of things that VR can help folks with.
Even a set of false teeth so that someone can do interviews successfully. I mean, it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, another good service for people to be aware of. Ticket to Work local workforce incentive liaisons. They have work offices all over the state, as you can see, and they're technical experts in Social Security. So as you're navigating the Social Security system that we talked about earlier, these are people that you probably want to talk to in that office as well, because they can answer questions about work incentives, past plans, all of the things that we're talking about before. You have anything else to add with that, Rosie?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember with Social Security, there's a pie of people who receive Social Security benefits. The biggest chunk is retirees. So the piece that is SSI, SSDI for individuals with disabilities is a very small piece. That's why you want that expert when you talk to Social Security.
Working Healthy programs is a program that's somewhat unique to Kansas, and it allows people who have disabilities that are working or working intermittently to actually qualify for Medicaid coverage or insurance coverage at a very low cost. And there's benefits planning assistants and outreach specialists that can help with any questions that you have with that. And the people that I've talked with that have this service are very, very pleased with this service. Very seldom do people go off that. And it's really amazing how much money you actually can make and still qualify for those Medicaid services. It's in the, I think that they're, depending on the situation, it could be in the $40,000, $50,000 range even.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And the important thing to remember, even if you thinking you don't need to buy in for Medicaid, this is where you go to find out how much money you can make and still get your Social Security and your medical. This is where you learn about what benefits to choose.
Okay. This one I think you ought to take, Rosie, because you worked in this field a lot longer than I have in this area.
Centers for Independent Living. This is a good starting place for that individual that says, I don't even know where to begin. This is a good spot. This is the listing of the centers within Kansas. They do 5 core services. All their services are free. Information referrals, probably their biggest. That means any question you have, you call up and they're going to have an answer and get back with you. Independent living skills training, advocacy system and individual, and peer counseling. That way you get to meet other individuals with your type of disability and see their success and know you can.
And I think one of the keys to that is there's always the right time. Any time is the right time to go talk to these folks, because they'll help you navigate the rest of the systems as well, because they're experts in that.
Yeah, and they're good to even go with you to those places.
Here we've got Kansas Transit Provider Directory up here. And one of the key issues that people face a lot of times is just being able to get transportation to and from work or to and from an interview. And so we do have transit districts that have been split up so that we have more centralized or more localized support options for folks. And I'm familiar with the one here in North Central Kansas because I lived in that area. But they've worked hard to come up with new and creative ways to help people figure out transportation. It's more of a challenge in the rural areas, and it's probably always going to be. But unless those rural areas know that you have a challenge, they're not going to help fix the problems with that. So if you're having issues with that, you need to be contacting your transit district and letting them know what the issues are.
You know, even though we talk a lot about transition age youth, disabilities are, you know, they don't care what age you are. When they're going to happen, they're going to happen. You know, so area agencies on aging, they're the place to go for that individual that's 65 plus and they're going, oh gosh, now I've had a stroke and I don't quite know how to do this from this point, whether it's connecting to services, gaining employment, volunteer opportunities. This is a really good place to start.
And we actually do have specialized programs for people that are over the age of 65 that still want to work some or volunteer or do those kinds of things. And so this, again, is a great folks to get to know, and they can help you with a lot of things. The Aging and Disability Resource Center is basically a place, they streamline the process of people getting access to different services. They do assessments and work through just a lot of different things on helping you get caregivers in your home if that's what you need, or access to whatever kind of supports and services you need as you're aging in place, hopefully.
And they call that their options counseling, is what they call it. Another one that we don't have a map up for, but it hit me the first time we did this, Steve, is the Assistive Technology of Kansas. It doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter what your disability. A lot of people can increase the things they get to do in life if they have the right assistive technology. So look for that map as well.
Yeah, and I think one other thing we do need to talk about too is just this year we passed a really good provisions in the ABLE Act, which will allow people to be able to amass wealth, build some savings, those kinds of things, without having to worry about losing their benefits and their supports. And that's a really great thing, and you can contact the Kansas Treasurer's Office for more information on that as well. If you need more information on any of these services, you can either come to the Kansas Council on Developmental Disabilities website, which is kcdd.org, or you can go to the Kansas Commission on Disabilities Concerns, which is kcdcinfo@kansas.gov. And that's where we drew this from. There was no reason for us to recreate what the state's already developed, but we just want to make sure that people know that all these resources are available right here in Kansas for Kansans.